In this video, we'll look at features and enhancements available in InfoBurst 2023.3. InfoBurst 2023.3 was released June 15th, and as always, version release notes are available on the InfoSol help desk, help.infosol.com, under Forums and Release Notes. The release notes will include all details of the features and enhancements discussed in this video, in addition to all bug fixes in the version. The first enhancement we'll look at is to the burst. In 2023.3, we've added a new Excel extension. As a reminder, Excel extensions are a feature that allow you to take Excel from any source, your BI reports, database queries, and augment them with one or more extensions. These extensions can include column level filters, row level grouping, auto-fitting columns to data, things like this. So we've added to that library of extensions a new set number format extension that allows you to define one or more columns in the Excel file and customize the formatting of either the number or date in that column. Let's look at an example of this extension in InfoBurst. So here I have a burst. It contains a BI report. It's a Business Objects Web Intelligence report, and this report has a delivery in Excel format. So let's look at the original output from this BI report. So here you can see in the third column we have an order date. I've highlighted the values, and this is the default date format from the reporting platform, and we'd like to change that, customize the format. So let's go back over to InfoBurst and let's look at the Format tab. And here we've added one extension, and that extension is Set Number Format. If we open that, it's very simple. We define which column or columns that we'd like to format. I've designated column 3, and the desired format I've elected to use mm-dd-yy. Let's look at the result. So here you can see in the third column we have the resulting format from the extensions. So the workflow is the document is refreshed, it is exported by the reporting platform. InfoBurst then takes that Excel, applies the extension that you've configured, and the result is what you see on your screen. Just as a reminder, you can leverage multiple extensions in a single delivery. So you might have an Excel file where you want to add a column level filter, do data autofit on the column, add a number format. You can mix and match the extensions to achieve the desired Excel output. The next enhancement in 2023.3 is to Tableau authentication. In a previous version, we provided the option to authenticate to Tableau using what's known as a Personal Access Token, or PAT, and that PAT was configured at the platform level, which meant any user, InfoBurst user of the platform, would be authenticating under that common Personal Access Token. In 2023.3, we've introduced the ability to configure the Personal Access Token at either the platform level, so one token for all users, or configurable at the individual user level, where each Tableau user can add and authenticate using their own PAT. Next, we'll look at enhancements in the InfoBurst Portal. In previous versions of InfoBurst, we introduced the ability to host Squirrel dashboards. For those of you that aren't aware, Squirrel 365 is a dashboard and web application design tool, and currently we can, or a user can, upload and host their Squirrel dashboard in the secure InfoBurst portal. This first change regards specifically Squirrel and use of that the viewing user's portal ID. So the end user, to view the dashboard when it's hosted in the portal, must log into the portal, at which point InfoBurst knows the ID of the viewing user. And the dashboard designer might want to take that ID value and do something with it. So let's first look at how this is done in Squirrel, and then we'll talk about the use case practically in the InfoBurst portal. So here in the Squirrel design tool, I've added what's called an external parameter. From the list here, we can see it's called an external parameter. I've added it here. And on the right-hand side, we've configured it specifically for use with the portal. So the idea here is we want InfoBurst to pass to the dashboard the ID of the viewing user. Then that ID value is leveraged by the dashboard designer to do things like filter a data cache or pass it as a parameter to a database query, all for obtaining data for the dashboard. So I've added the external parameter. The name is specifically IBE user, and all of this is documented in the InfoSol help desk. The type of external parameter is called JS message, and with those configurations in place, we're simply mapping the captured value into a cell in our dashboard model. So here I've mapped it into this blue cell, which is receiving the ID value. And then this dashboard has a connection to InfoBurst, specifically to what's known as an XDC cache query, and that cache query has a parameter for ID. So InfoBurst the dashboard will take the ID value, pass it into this cell, and then when the query is executed, the parameter value will come from that cell. So when the dashboard is placed into the portal, that ID value is the viewing user. That value is passed back to filter the data cache, and then only the viewing user's data is returned back to the dashboard. So I've exported this dashboard as a .dash file, and now we'll look at how to upload that into the InfoBurst portal. So back in InfoBurst, we'll actually go into the InfoBurst portal here. Oh, no, right here. So here's my portal logon. I'm going to log in as portal user Bryan. And here I have a folder called dashboards, and I would like to host the Squirrel dashboard in this folder. So I'll select my actions menu. We'll say upload file. I'm going to browse for my dashboard, my .dash file. And here's our sample dashboard, portal ID demo.dash. We'll open it and upload to the portal. Okay. At this point, the portal is not configured to pass the portal ID to the dashboard. We need to make this configuration change once after the dashboard is uploaded. So I will go back into my actions menu, select edit. I'll select this first icon here, the little code icon, and then I'll check this box, provide IBE user via external parameter. This is what allows the portal to pass the ID to the dashboard. I'll update that and close. Now, as user Bryan, when I open this dashboard, we can see that the data is returned only for user Bryan. Then if we log in as a different user, let's log off as Bryan and we'll log in as user John. We'll open that same dashboard, but in this case, John's ID is passed to the dashboard. The dashboard passed the John ID to the cache and filters only for John's data. The next enhancement to the InfoBurst portal gives users the ability to upload and host their own custom web applications. In the previous example, we looked at the hosting of a Squirrel dashboard, a web application created by the Squirrel design tool. But you might have a web application created with some other tool or developed from scratch. These can also be hosted inside the secure InfoBurst portal. So the only prerequisite for this process is that the files that comprise your web application must be zipped. You can call the zip name whatever you like, and then that zip file is uploaded to the portal and becomes the hosted web application. So let's look at an example here. Okay, so back in the portal, I'm in my dashboards folder. I'd like to upload and host my web application here. So we start by saying actions, new application. We're going to give that application a name. I'm going to call this my web app. We can define what is the launch page, the starting page for the app. In this case, it defaults to index.html, and that is the name of my launch page as well. We'll talk about launch options just a little later. So I'm going to create the app, and this is a container that will then receive the web application files. So I'll create the app, and then we're asked to upload. So I'll browse to here in my folder. I have a My App folder which contains my zip file. That zip file contains my simple web application. It's just a web page. So we'll open that. I will upload to the portal. And here we can see the icon that represents the web application. And if I open that, here's my simple web application. It says Hello World. So 2020.3, we now expand the portal to allow hosting of any web application. And on the topic of hosting Squirrel dashboards and web applications in the InfoBurst portal, we've added some controls which allow the administrator to determine how the dashboard is launched when a user clicks on it in the portal. Let's go back over to the InfoBurst portal, and here we have our dashboard, our web application. And let's first look here. Let's open our portal ID demo again, and we can see how that dashboard is launched. So we see the dashboard rendered within the portal, so we can see obviously the dashboard navigation menus, all that. But what we'd like to do is change the launch option that says when the user clicks on their dashboard, that's actually launched into a separate tab that shows them only the dashboard. So if I select Actions and Edit, and then I'll select this first icon here, and under Launch Options, I'm going to change this to New Window and Update. We'll close that. Now, when I launch this dashboard, it's launched on a brand new tab, and all we see is our dashboard application. And from here, the user can actually bookmark the dashboard. So I can do that here. We might come in and add a little custom name for that. When the user comes back, if they are authenticated to the portal, then they can launch that dashboard and view it with no prompting for credentials. If they're not authenticated to the portal, then they'll simply have to authenticate, and then their dashboard is opened automatically. Further changes to the portal. These regard hosting of traditional content like PDF files, HTML. So in this new version, the user has the ability at the delivery level to determine how the version names are created. So when I deliver content to the portal is designed for versioning. So I can deliver different versions of the same content over time, and those versions have a specific display name. By default, InfoBurst will utilize what's known as the data context. That means, for example, if I have let's say a business intelligence report and it has parameters for date and region, then those values that were used to refresh the document will form the in addition to the document name, the version name. This is default. But some users might want to take control of that version name using standard InfoBurst naming conventions, using things like InfoBurst macros. And so at the delivery level, the user can simply opt in to use a custom file name where they can define what will become that version name themselves. So we now have two options for determining how those version names are displayed. We've also made a few changes to make viewing of content just a little easier in the portal. When we're looking at a group of content that has multiple versions, then that content is wrapped in a frame that includes things like the list of versions, reports, that sort of thing. So this next change simply says that when the content group has only one version, we won't show any of the version information. It is superfluous at that point. So if I can show you an example of that again here in the portal. If we come back to portal home, we'll go into the demo reports. And let's first look at a content group that has multiple versions. So here we'll look at this sales by region. And this is what most users would see. I have numerous versions of the same report here listed on the left, and then the selected version is displayed on the right. When the content group has only one version, and let's see if we have an example here. This one here, this is a HTML from a Crystal report. If I click in, you'll notice all we see is the content. We don't see any of the frames on the left that has the version selection because there are no versions. So InfoBurst will intelligently display the content by itself when there's only one version. And the last set of enhancements in 2023.3 are at the system level. First, and this is a minor change, older versions of InfoBurst had a feature called InfoBurst Apps, where users could host their web applications, their dashboards, and we've now moved on to allow hosting of those things in the portal where it's more secure. And we have had users ask for the ability to disable access to the endpoint, the URL, where the old legacy InfoBurst apps is hosted. So in this new version, an administrator can go in and simply toggle off that access, and users can no longer get to that endpoint. And the final change, and this is a big one, is we have added a third authentication option to the InfoBurst system. Currently, InfoBurst supports basic authentication, or what's known as InfoBurst authentication, which is username and password. We also offer the ability to enable Windows authentication, and in this mode, Windows users that have accounts in our system are automatically logged in or single sign-on into InfoBurst. They are not presented credentials. These are the two current authentication options. And we've added a third, that is OpenID. There are a variety of OpenID, what are known as identity providers like Okta out there, and we've had more users asking for the ability to leverage an OpenID provider as the authentication mechanism to InfoBurst. So in 2023, you can leverage this new authentication option. So let's go in and first take a look at how this is set up. I'm going to go back to InfoBurst, and we'll go into System, and we'll go into Configuration and Authentication. All right. So let's look first at auth mode. This is where we set the system authentication mode, and we have a new option here called OpenID. And when you select this option, InfoBurst tells you there are things you need to do to prepare to use OpenID, and the specific process is documented in the help desk under our authentication management article. So just search authentication management and you'll see all the details for setting this up. But basically we need 3 values before we can turn on this authentication mode, and that's the OpenID client ID, the OpenID client secret, and the OpenID URL. This fourth option is purely optional security measure. So with these values in place, here's my client ID, client secret, and then my URL there, we are now ready to change our auth mode to OpenID. So I'll make the selection, I'll save it, and now if we reload the InfoBurst user interface, InfoBurst is looking for my OpenID identity. It can't find it because I'm not logged into my ID provider. So my identification provider in this example is Okta. So I need to log into Okta to then be single signed in to InfoBurst. So let me just grab my Okta password, plug that in here, sign into Okta. Then we are automatically redirected back to InfoBurst and automatically signed on into the InfoBurst user interface. So we can leverage this OpenID single sign-on for both the InfoBurst main user interface and the InfoBurst portal.